Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important segment. I'm going to read the two motions that John Durham filed recently, and one of the motions that media is trying to utilize in order to circumvent the fact that President Trump was right. They were engaging in surveillance of his campaign. The Clinton campaign, Democrats, and media, well, Clinton paid an attorney who worked for the Clinton campaign and also a cyber or a tech executive to obtain information, acquire data, information, internet traffic, internet data usage, a whole bunch of information on Trump. And they did so for the purpose of setting up and framing him. This is not rocket science. It's within the indictments and it's within the motion. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Thank you everybody for watching. Erica, David, Eric and Luke, thank you for being amazing moderators. Ed from Queens, thanks everybody. Oliver, Cruise Control, everybody here, thank you. Let's get started. Hit subscribe. If you get kicked out of the live stream, just refresh or log back onto the live stream, because sometimes that happens. To my super chat, your support is greatly appreciated. If you enjoy these live streams, then your support via super chat is just greatly appreciated. You allow me to do these live streams. You help me do them. So your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. To my super chat, thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the latest court filing motion. United States District Court for the District of Columbia, United States of America versus Michael A. Sussman, defendant. Criminal case number 21582. Government's response to the defendant's cross motion to strike. So the defendant said, you know what? The court should just do away with this because I forgot what reason he gave, but he lied to the FBI, but he did so because he was working for the Clinton campaign. The Bureau says, well, we didn't know. Well, of course they knew. But anyway, what Durham is doing is he's utilizing the interests of government agents or government agencies to pretend that they were innocent and duped by Clinton, or I should say the attorney hired by Clinton to obtain information on Trump, to set him up and frame him. The whole point of the information on Trump was to give this information to government agencies in order to link Trump to Putin and Russia. That's the whole point. I want to read you this. And we'll be reading this all week because this is very important, very, very important. The United States of America, by and through its attorney, Special Counsel John G. Durham, writes respectfully in opposition to the defendant's cross motion to strike 6 paragraphs from the government's February 11, 2022 motion to inquire into potential conflicts of interest. For the reasons set forth below, this court should deny the defendant's motion. Okay. 2. As an initial matter, defense counsel has presumed the government's bad faith and asserts that the special counsel's office intentionally sought to politicize this case, inflame media coverage, and taint the jury pool. Well, that's what happened with Manafort, with Papadopoulos, with Stone, with everybody. It's unbelievable. Attorneys, so the lawyers for Sussman are saying, because he was indicted and because media that happened not to be MSNBC or CNN, but Fox News, or the Wall Street Journal, or the Daily Beast, or the Federalist, or the Daily Caller. Conservative media said, oh, look, an attorney for the Clintons, or for the Democratic Party, was actually indicted. And he was indicted for telling the Bureau that he wasn't working for Clinton, which, of course, he was. That is, of course, a lie under oath. And so why was he working for Madam Secretary? To obtain information alongside a tech executive in a tech company and give that information to government agencies, Central Intelligence, the Bureau, other agencies, to try to link, to get them to investigate an incoming candidate and President Donald Trump. That was the whole point. So when you have MSNBC or others, or the Washington Post or Vanity Fair, Ed from Queens, thank you, Ed from Queens, thank you. Thank you so very much, Ed from Queens. Thank you so much. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you. To my super chat, thank you so much, Ed from Queens. Thank you. When they say that, well, the conservative media, they ran with this story. It's the actual story. That it's like the actual, like, this shows that they were obtaining information for the purpose. The fact that they were obtaining information. Ed from Queens, thank you. This is so simple to understand, but see, media cannot possibly admit that they set up and framed Trump. The mere act inherent to obtaining information on Trump. If you're obtaining the information on Trump, Jordan Weinberg, thank you, Jordan. Greatly appreciated. Jordan Weinberg, thank you so much. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you. To my super chat, thank you. Jordan, Ed, thank you so much. If you are obtaining the information and you're paying an attorney, and the attorney's working with a tech company and a tech executive, and they're gathering and acquiring and obtaining non-public information on Donald Trump, and they're looking at information, and they're gathering internet data and technology information pertaining to his internet usage and his communication, and they're giving that information, and they're taking the information out of context and trying to weave a narrative that says that Trump worked with Russia or he's communicating with a bank. If they are doing this, it is called surveillance for the purpose of trying to link Trump to a fabricated story. But Joe Scarborough of MSNBC or the Washington Post journalists or Vanity Fair journalists can't possibly admit that Clinton had a political motive for hiring an attorney or numerous attorneys. It wasn't just the Alpha Bank story that was completely false and fabricated and promulgated by people like Jake Sullivan. It was also the Steele dossier. It was a whole bunch of other stories. So they didn't have anything on Trump. That's the point. The point is they didn't have anything on Trump. They had nothing on him. In 30 years of public life, they couldn't find anything that would show he was disloyal or, sold out to another country or anything like that. So they needed to find some excuse. Janet, hello. They needed to find some excuse to investigate him. That's the issue. And it's so interesting how media has a monopoly. They think they have a monopoly on suspicion. So you can be suspicious of Trump, but you can't, but God forbid you're suspicious of mashed potato brains Biden or of Clinton. So what his lawyers were doing, Sussman is saying, oh, well, you know what? It's unfair because the media is influencing the jury. That's all they did for 4 years. What do you think the grand jury in New York, you think they're maybe influenced by everyone, every Democrat in New York City trying desperately to go after Trump? They can't find anything on the man. If they went after Clinton or Biden with the same passion and energy and enthusiasm they went after Trump, Lord knows what they'd find. But they can't find anything on Trump. But here, the government included 2 paragraphs of limited additional factual details in its motion for valid and straightforward reasons. First, those paragraphs reflect conduct that is interviewed with and part of events that are central to proving the defendant's alleged criminal conduct. Second, the government included these paragraphs to apprise the court of factual basis for one of the potential conflicts described in the government's motion, namely that a member of a defense team was working for the executive office of the President of the United States during relevant events that involved the EOP. If third parties or members of the media have overstated, understated, or otherwise misinterpreted facts contained in the government motion, that does not in any way undermine the valid reasons for the government's inclusion of this information. So this is interesting. Government included these paragraphs to apprise the court of the factual basis for one of the potential conflicts described in the government's motion, namely that a member of the defense team was working for the executive office of the President of the United States during relevant events that involved the EOP. So, member of the defense team, is he? Not exactly sure what he's referring to. Is he referring to the defense team for Sussman? In light of the above, there's no basis to strike any in light of the above, there's no basis to strike any portion of the government's motion. Indeed, the government intends to file motions, in which it will further discuss these and other pertinent facts to explain why they constitute relevant and admissible evidence at trial. So then media, what they did is they said, oh, well, if third parties or members of the media had overstated, understated, otherwise misinterpreted facts contained in the government's motion, that does not in any way undermine the valid reasons for the government's inclusion of this information. So then what the media did is they said, oh, well, Durham is distancing himself from spying claims. There's nothing here where he's not saying he's distancing himself from anything. Executive Office of the President of the United States. So hold on one second. Let's see here. Special counsel rejects claim he's politicized high-profile prosecution. Justice Department Special Counsel John Durham is rejecting allegations that he has sought to politicize the high-profile prosecution of a Washington lawyer charged as part of his investigation in the FBI's Trump-Russia probe. The pushback, which came in a court document late Thursday, is the latest in a series of back-and-forth legal filings that have generated headlines in recent days about Durham's investigation and what it has and has not found so far. It directly addressed accusations made by lawyers for Michael Sussman in court documents earlier this week. Defense counsel has presumed the government's bad faith and asserts the special counsel's office intentionally sought to politicize this case. The interesting thing is the case is obviously highly political in nature. Just like every indictment of the Mueller probe special. I love when they have a Mueller probe special counsel that was purely political, had nothing to do with national security. Facebook ads had nothing to do with national security at all. Nothing. Janet, thank you so very much. Janet McGuffey, thank you so much, Janet. Greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a great evening, and I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you so very much. So kind of you, Janet, as always, for your support. And I just can't thank you enough, Janet. It's so kind of you. Thank you so much. Phoebe! At least Trump is not tweeting. Exactly. At least Trump's not tweeting. Exactly. That's what they'll be saying. Janet McGuffey! Thank you, Janet. Thank you so very, very, very much. Eric and Luke, thank you for being amazing moderators. Eric has a video game channel. If you're into video games, definitely subscribe to Eric's channel. Janet, thank you so much. So kind of you, as always. I can't thank you enough. Phoebe, exactly. At least Trump isn't tweeting. Exactly. So defense counsels presume the government's bad faith and asserts that the special counsel's office intentionally sought to politicize this case, inflame media coverage, and taint the jury pool. Well, what about the jury pool for every indictment of the Mueller probe special counsel that was based solely upon media nonsense? You think George Papadopoulos got, 1 week? And he shouldn't even have gotten 1 week. There was an attorney, in the very beginning of it that got a month or something. The whole thing was politicized. And they indicted people just on process crimes. Nothing like Kleinsmith or the Steel Subsource or Sussman, who were indicted in part because they were engaged in trying to find information and utilize that information against Trump. It's not difficult to understand. During the Trump administration, then Attorney General William Barr appointed Durham to investigate the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. Sussman, a Washington attorney who worked at a firm with long-standing ties to the Democratic Party, has pleaded not guilty to a single false statement charge stemming from Durham's investigation for allegedly lying to the FBI in a conversation ahead of about possible ties. But see, this is the NPR is not going to give you exactly the reason he's being indicted. So they'll gloss over everything. Last Friday, Durham submitted a court filing about potential conflicts of interest in Sussman's case, but included other information about a meeting Sussman had in 2017 with Central Intelligence to pass along information about suspicious internet data related to Trump and Russia. It wasn't suspicious. It proved to be nothing. And it was only suspicious because they were desperate to find something, so they found something on Trump and then gave the information to people in media gave the information to people in government who also wanted a pretext to investigate Trump. Last Friday, Durham submitted a court filing about a potential conflict of interest in Sussman's case, but included other information about a meeting Sussman had in 2017 with Central Intelligence. What on earth is Central Intelligence Agency and the Bureau and the Federal Bureau of Investigation doing meeting with people who work for Clinton? That should never happen. That should never happen. I mean, could you imagine if anyone who worked with Trump, could you imagine if Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. met with agents at Central Intelligence or the Bureau? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Oh my God, you would never hear the end of it. Janet, thank you. Phoebe, thank you. You would never hear the end of it. My God almighty, you would never hear the end of it. But because it's the other way around, no problem. So, over the Allies, Trump and his allies spun that filing, falsely claiming, and I love it's not falsely claiming, it's accurately claiming, very accurately claiming. Hillary Clinton had paid operatives to spy on Trump campaign. That's exactly what it says. Durham said no such thing. Durham didn't have to say that verbatim. This is basic logic. This is how media lies. Durham didn't have to say that. He explained the whole thing in the indictment. My God. And also within the filing, still Trump's spying allegations dominated headlines. It is exactly what took place. So Durham is not going to say, yeah, Clinton spied on Trump. Durham will say Clinton paid somebody to obtain information prior to Trump becoming president and likely after he was president in order to give that information, non-public information, that's called surveillance, to government agencies to investigate Trump. There's two components. One is the acquisition of the data, and two is giving that data to government agencies. This is not rocket science. This is not rocket science. My God almighty, it's so easy to understand. But I'm going to read. I found this NPR post this NPR article just because I want to see the executive office. Okay, so the special counsel had again made a filing in this case that unnecessarily includes prejudicial and false allegations that are irrelevant to his motion. What? They're totally relevant and are plainly intended to politicize the case. The whole thing is political. The entire case is political. Okay, that's the entire case is political. So, just like the Mueller probe special counsel, they said that Sussman and several uncharged researchers had lawful access to the internet data. If they had lawful access and they lawfully gave information that wasn't accurate to intelligence agencies to lawfully investigate Trump, at the end of the day, you have a whole lot of corruption. And so people, in a deceptive manner, knowing very well that Trump didn't work with Russia or wasn't installed by the Kremlin, tried to create and dupe and deceive and conspire against the American people. That's 18 U.S. Code 371. You can't simply say, well, I lawfully did this and lawfully did that, and at the end of the day, you do a whole bunch of things that are legal, but with a very corrupt motive and with the intent of deceiving the American public. Can't do that, sorry. Especially if you're getting paid by taxpayer dollars. They said that Sussman and several uncharted. They also asked the judge to strike the part of Durham's filing that say contains misleading allegations. What? Last Thursday, almost all. He said. Okay, so hold on one second. There's a interesting. Hold on one second. So here, Trump campaign manager, both of whom see pardons Trump. Durham's team then promised to make filings under a seal that could result in disclosure of witness identities, affect the safety of individual, or implicate ongoing law enforcement or national security concern. In other words, such filings would be hidden from the public. So the National Review has a great article. So let's see here. So the misleading claim that Durham's reference to Trump White House records was misleading. So let's read this. This is great from Andrew McCarthy. Mad Cow Mark! Mad Cow Mark, did you see the Canadian? I know. My God. My God. Exactly. Mad Cow Mark. Unbelievable. Janet, Phoebe. Unbelievable. Mad Cow Mark. And you see that could you imagine if could you imagine if Trudeau, if Trump had done what Canada's Prime Minister had done? Could you imagine? Mad Cow Mark, thank you. Thank you so very much. So here, Mad Cow Mark, thank you as always. Janet, Phoebe, everybody here, thank you. Ed, thank you. The media Democrat complex's main gripe about Special Counsel John Durham's February 11th motion is the prosecutor's supposedly misleading reference to internet traffic records derived from the executive office of the president's staff, or the White House. Durham, of course, has indicted Democratic Party lawyer Michael Sussman for allegedly making a false statement to the FBI. In September 2016, the prosecutor alleges that Sussman and his alleged collaborator, tech executive, exploited the tech executive's access to EOP records. Executive Office of the President records, among other internet traffic records, in order to frame Trump as a clandestine agent of Russia. So, I mean, how on earth is that difficult for NPR, The Washington Post, Vanity Fair, MSNBC's Joe Scarborough to understand? Why is that so difficult for them to understand? I mean, it happened more than once. They are said to have suggested that Trump and the Kremlin were using servers of the Alpha Bank, a significant Russian financial institution, as part of communications back channel. They're always so into the back channels, and they have the most back channels possible. Mad Cow Mark, thank you. So, last week, in the course of making a motion to ask the court to address defense counsel's potential conflict of interest. Durham disclosed that Sussman also met with the Central Intelligence Agency in early February 2017 and provided Trump-Russia data from the tech executive that updated what he had given to the Bureau in September. Sussman and his supporters now grouse that Durham's motion is prejudicially misleading. No, it's not. The gist of the complaint is that Durham was hiding the ball. The EOP records in question cover the period from 2014 until 2017, the period during which President Obama, not Trump, was president. So what? They got information about Trump during that time. So what? How could it be, Sussman supporters theatrically pine that Trump could be framed by using data from another president's time in office? Easily. How could Trump supporters seriously contend that Clinton campaign was spying on the Trump White House when the internet traffic record in question reflect activities of the Obama White House? Because they weren't obtaining information about President Obama. They were obtaining information about Trump. Why is that so difficult to understand? The very fact that Clinton paid anyone to do anything means that she was giving the money in order for a specific purpose. My God, they say she doesn't use servers intentionally, she doesn't pay people intentionally, nothing is intentional. But something happens on, in the farthest reaches of the universe, Trump intentionally made it happen, wanted it to happen, and all of that. The Sussman camp claims the Sussman camp claim is itself misleading. To begin with, as noted above, the objective of the Durham motion was not to ignite a media frenzy over political spying. And by the way, God forbid conservative media actually says what took place and is upset about it. I mean, all you have is outrage from media in general, which is liberal Democratic Party aligned media. That's all they have a monopoly on suspicion, outrage, indignation. That's what they live their lives for. Condemnation, judgment. That's the only thing that they care about in life. That gives them spiritual sustenance. Heaven forbid the conservative media, oh my God, is actually upset about this indictment, which shows that data was obtained to set up and frame Trump. It doesn't really matter when the data was obtained. The point was to set up and frame Trump. Mad Cow Mark! Did that just go over everyone's head? Read the last one slowly. I know. I got that. I got that. Mad Cow Mark, I did get that. I did get that. And it's terrible. I mean, it's the authoritarians are the ones who pretend to be like you hear Trudeau speak, and the man is all you hear is this like phony, fake, theatrical performance every time he's speaking about ideals and these lofty ideals. He doesn't even believe any of them because he has pictures where he's in a certain type of attire or makeup that nobody has. Almost nobody on the planet has those types of photos, but you better believe the morally superior among us do because they don't really believe in what they claim to believe. And the bank accounts being frozen it has to be illegal. It would be illegal in this country, but it has to be illegal in Canada. Give me your thoughts. Tell me about that. I was going to say, give me your thoughts below. Mad Cow Mark, thank you so very much. Thank you, Mad Cow Mark. To begin with, as noted above, the objective of the Durham motion was not to ignite a media frenzy. It was to lay out, as Durham was obliged to do, the evidence that might be relevant to conflicts of interest under which Sussman's lawyers are potentially laboring. So, that aside, Durham's motion expressly states that relevant executive office of the president records are from 2014 to 2017 when Obama was president. There was no ball hiding on that. Durham further asserts, moreover, that Sussman based his framing of Trump as a Russian spy on data tech executive one had mined from EOP internet traffic. There's no reason to doubt that this is true. Indeed, in their pushback, Sussman apologists are not claiming that EOP traffic mined by tech executive one formed no part of Sussman's presentation to Central Intelligence. They are claiming the DNS data and the EOP and the Executive Office of President is from the Obama years. And they want you to believe that it must all be from the Obama years, even though a small portion of it is almost certainly from Trump's first week in office. There you go. That's what I was saying for a long time. There you go. There you go. Even though a small part of it must be almost certainly from Trump's first. Again, Durham was entirely transparent about that. Let's look at exactly what Durham's motion, page 3, said in this regard. The government's evidence at trial will also establish that among the internet data Tech Executive 1 and his associates exploited was domain name system internet traffic pertaining to a particular healthcare provider, Trump Tower, Donald Trump's Central Park West apartment building, and the executive office of the President of the United States. So they were spying on him on numerous locations. Tech Executive One's employer, Internet Company One, had come to access and maintain dedicated servers for the executive office of the President as part of a sensitive arrangement whereby it provided DNS resolution to the EOP. Tech Executive One and his associates exploited this arrangement by mining the EOP's DNS traffic and other data for the purpose of gathering derogatory information about Donald Trump. So there you go. I mean, this is great. This is fantastic. The indictment further details that on February 9, 2017, the defendant provided an updated set of allegations, including the Russia Bank 1 data and additional allegations relating to Trump, to a second agency of the U.S. government. Agency 2 appears to be CIA. The government's evidence at trial will establish that these additional allegations relied in part on the reported DNS traffic that Tech Executive 1 and others had assembled pertaining to the Trump Tower, Donald Trump's New York City apartment building, the executive office of the president, the aforementioned healthcare provider. So what are they doing getting information from a healthcare provider? How on earth is that legal? In this meeting with Agency 2, the defendant provided data which he claimed reflected purportedly suspicious DNS lookups by these entities of Internet Protocol. I mean, it's like, you would have to be, they had nothing on him. And so obviously people at the Bureau wanted a pretext. So this man, James Baker, who said, "Oh, I didn't know that Sussman was trying to deceive me." Of course he knew. But they needed a pretext. So now you have a special counsel, and, the defendant further claimed, and now they're all turning on each other. The defendant further, you think that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when they actually met, that Sussman believed he'd be indicted? Not in a million years. Do you think that James Baker believed he'd have to turn on Sussman? Not in a million years. And they're all going to be turning on each other because there's going to be more indictments. The defendant further claimed that these lookups demonstrated that Trump and his associates were using supposedly rare Russian-made wireless phones in the vicinity of the White House. The special counsel's office. I mean, first of all, the National Security Agency would know this. We spent $30 billion on just 3 of those agencies that were highly to moderately confident. $30 billion. Are you kidding me? $30 billion. So, if you spent $30 billion, I think they would have known anyway. Special counsel's office identified. Okay, so the defendant further claimed that these lookups demonstrated indeed, more complete DNS data that the special counsel's office obtained from a company that assisted Tech Executive One in assembling his allegations reflect that such DNS lookups were far more rare in the United States. Okay, so at the end of the day, they found nothing. It was basically information from a marketing software company. Now, a couple things to notice here. First, Sussman's meeting with Central Intelligence is said to have occurred on February 9, 2017. By that date, Trump had been president for nearly 3 weeks. Furthermore, Durham says the information Sussman brought to the Central Intelligence was updated. Then you read, well, that nobody was ever charged. Well, okay, but Trump was never charged ever, and they're still investigating him. So what does that mean? These people engage in legal means to set up and frame Trump. Legal means. The data that Sussman showed the Central Intelligence has not been made public. Obviously, that means it included new data since Sussman's September 19, 2016 meeting with the FBI. That data that Sussman showed the Central Intelligence had not been made public. We can safely assume that if tech executive one still had access, the data included from Trump's early presidency, drawn from January 20th to February 9, 2017, or shortly before February 9th. So, yes, he was in the executive office. He was president at that point. He was president for 3 weeks or so. But see, again, they were obtaining data on him even before he was president. So the fact that they were obtaining data before he was president is irrelevant. The whole point is they were obtaining the data. In addition, Durham relates that Sussman told the Central Intelligence that Trump and his associates were using very rare, Russian-made wireless phones. Like, the National Security Agency would have known this anyway. Durham further relates that Sussman connected his claims about the use of Russian-made wireless phones at the Trump White House and Trump locations to purported suspicious DNA. The Russian. In any event, the suggestion that none of the data relate to the Trump's presidency is not consistent with Durham's motion. Okay, it's good because the Durham's motion says they obtained data while he was president and they obtained data before he was president. But the common theme was that they obtained information and they acquired information about Trump. It's not that difficult for the left or Democrats or media to understand, but they don't want to understand it. Gretchen Jones! Thank you, Gretchen! Gretchen Jones, thank you! Tom Fitton is awesome, it's true. Gretchen Jones, thank you, Gretchen. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So, a Russian-made smartphone rarely seen in the United States. So what? Had been used. So this is nonsense. This is nonsense. So now you're going to relay information about trivial things and try to make these huge leaps of logic that would be called you know what theories if it was leveled against Biden or Clinton or any Democrat. And the whole thing with Trump Russia was fabricated to begin with. There's zero evidence. Okay, the people who think that Facebook ads were purchased by Putin are complete imbeciles. Okay? You think Vladimir Putin cared about the DNC emails? Nobody in Russia cared about the DNC emails. The only people who cared about the DNC emails were Bernie Sanders supporters. And of those Bernie Sanders supporters, like maybe 2%, 3%, including myself, actually made a huge issue about them. Everyone else, like about 10 to 15% voted for Trump in 2016, but like 85, 90% just accepted it and voted for Clinton. So the DNC emails, they say, were hacked by Russia. Well, why? Because Russia was so afraid of Clinton that they had to hack the DNC to show that Bernie was cheated, thus influencing, 2016. I mean, think of the absurd narcissism that you need to actually accept. They can't possibly accept. They're so corrupt that they don't even have a functioning primary. They're so utterly corrupt. And then you have very intelligent people. Like, nothing's more dangerous than very intelligent people who can't accept the truth. Eric, thank you. Thank you, Eric. Gretchen, thank you so very much. Janet, thank you so much. Phoebe, thank you so much. Everybody here, thank you very much. Mad Cow Mark, thank you. Now, the Times did not flat out say in this passage the data suggested Yodaphone usage was from networks serving the White House or from the Trump White House, but that certainly is the implication. There's no reason to think Sussman was trying to warn Central Intelligence that President Obama might be using a Yodaphone. The more recent report, Savage dismissively says that it's problematic for the conservative news outlets suddenly to highlight the information because it's old news, which he and Goldman previously reported. I don't see how the vintage of the reporting makes any difference when the question now being raised is whether some of the relevant data traces to Trump's administration rather than President Obama's. So the whole argument is that, well, it wasn't from Trump's White House, but it certainly was. And then they here's the thing here also. They're trying to say that, well, even if there was a conflict of interest, the defense and media is saying it was still worthwhile that Sussman gave this information. However, there's no evidence, aside from a high to moderate confidence assessment by Clapper and the Director of National Intelligence or the Homeland Security. There's only there are two reports. The reports have high to moderate confidence assessments and a warranty disclaimer stating that you can't hold them accountable in a court of law. So they just these intelligence agencies are political, completely political in nature now. And so they say, oh, what did they say that the other day? They said Zero Hedge was Russian propaganda, or Clinton said that Tulsi Gabbard was being groomed by Russia. And so the thing is, it's like anybody they don't like is accused of being a Russian operative. But see, again, that's a baseless claim. And this is why media lies. Because when it's a baseless claim made by anyone on the left to anyone on the right, they just say, okay, no problem. Oh, gee, it could be true. They don't say, oh my God, baseless claim. There's no indignation. There's no condemnation. There's no judgment. To summarize, Durham was not trying to spark a spying on the White House controversy. But see, again, if it's true, it's true. And it is true. They were spying on an incoming president. They were engaged in surveillance of an incoming president. Yes, of course, they don't want that. They do not want that. They don't want that to, they don't want that to be the case. Because it's embarrassing. Because it shows just how despicable or just how far, into it shows just how low they went to go after Trump. When you hear, because there are like brilliant people and really accomplished, like, thinkers and writers and atheists and all of these people, and they say, well, Trump lies so much. Nobody lied more than media. Even the fact check on Trump that the Washington Post has, a third of it, or a quarter to a third of it, is just him telling the truth. And where they slice and dice and it's like a semantic, like a philosophy of language course, where they say, well, he wasn't 100% accurate because he used this word, and this word means the following, and therefore it's not 100% accurate. So they'll obsess over minutia or hyperbole, when in reality what he's saying is pretty true. And that's like every president engages in hyperbole, maybe Trump more so than others. But the fact check, they'll say, oh, 3 Pinocchios, 4 Pinocchios, 1 Pinocchio. And what it is just basically a rebuttal. It's not a fact check. And so they come up with these, he's lied 10,565. Now, if you used that same metric or rubric, you would get an endless count of lies. Just tuned in. Jordan B., thank you. So sorry if you've touched on the subject of Ukraine. What are your thoughts on the conflict as fast approaching? How are you preparing? Well, I don't know exactly when. Jordan B., thank you. I don't know exactly when Russia will invade. And I don't know if they'll invade. They're probably going to engage in a military operation within the next, 2-3 months. They probably don't have enough soldiers at the border of Ukraine to actually launch a full-scale invasion. And so what they're doing is making the West spend money, resources, and shift their attention towards an imminent invasion when perhaps Jordan B, what they want to do is negotiate secretly with Ukraine to ensure that Ukraine will never join NATO. So, but see, here's the thing also, Jordan B, everybody here. Here's the really despicable part of all of this. Because mashed potato brain Biden's so inept, and this is yet another example of egg on their face. The economy's in the tank, inflation's through the roof. We're going to see the stock market crash that I've been saying within the year. It's going to be devastating. The economy's heading into a recession. Corporate profits will decline, obviously. Interest rates are going to go up, which will tank the market and also possibly send us into a depression. A recession within this year, or latest next year. And thank you, Eric. And so what Putin is doing is obviously outmaneuvering all of NATO and mashed potato brains and Biden's administration. Because what he's done is gotten the entire planet to focus on what he might do, while he simply, right now he's probably in a better position now. If you look, let's just look right here really quickly. So you have all of this Ukraine. France pushes for Biden-Putin meeting. So now you have Putin. He has leverage. He has a lot more leverage now than if he were to just invade. Because if he were to invade, there are, pitfalls that he faces. So now he can choose to invade whenever he wants, or he can just keep those soldiers there indefinitely and push for meetings, and he can obtain what he wants, perhaps, hopefully, without any invasion. And so, what Biden does, the whole thing with this administration is public relations. He has horrible, 38% approval? He's worse than Trump. And with Trump, they blamed everything on him. And nothing that they blamed was his fault. Nothing. Nothing they blamed was this man's fault. Okay? Nothing. And, he would push the envelope on Twitter, but other than that, and I tried to explain that in my last segment, everyone fell asleep. I had a live stream, but nobody would know it. Like 4 hours ago, everybody was like sleeping during the live stream. It didn't help that also people were kicked off the live stream, but anyway, Jordan B, I think that Putin yet managed to outmaneuver all of the West. Herschel Ballard! Thank you, Herschel, as always. My goodness, thank you, Herschel. Herschel Ballard, thank you so very much. Thank you, Herschel. Thank you so much and greatly appreciate it. Herschel Ballard, thank you. Thank you as always. So, so now you have Biden getting what he wants in meeting with the U.S. Putin getting what he wants in meeting with the U.S. And because this is happening under Biden's administration, the only way that he can not look like the same puppet that he accused Trump of. So, this didn't take place under Trump's watch. So the logical question, based on the past 5 years of American politics, is what does Putin have on mashed potato brains Biden? But you wouldn't ask that question. MSNBC and CNN wouldn't ask that question because they fabricated a myth that pertains only to Trump, and it never pertained to Trump. You can look throughout, like he was in the public eye for like 30 years. Not once was he linked in some nefarious manner to Moscow or to Putin or to anything like that. Not once. If anything, during Bill Clinton's administration, like Vladimir Putin has a story when he first became the leader of Russia. Bill Clinton, what was it like? Bill Clinton, some of the things he did was, the economy was good. Here and there, his foreign policy was good. Bill Clinton was much better than Biden. Anyone's better than Biden. The only person who could possibly say is worse is George W. Bush and maybe Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was so bad you had 12 years of Reagan and then Bush. And you would have had another Bush term, Herbert Walker, if not for Bill Clinton. And that's the reason that they forgive both Bill and Hillary for everything. So, anyway, and he called Putin by like a nickname. And that initially that like Vladimir Putin remembered that and it was like endearing. So he's not afraid of Democrats. That was the whole spin. Russia is so frightened. Like, you have to be a complete imbecile to believe this. And you have like a lot of pundits on the left. Jean-Louis! JG! Yes, JG, enjoy. Enjoy, JG. Jean-Louis! Social media algorithm censorship. Euphemism, hyperbole, metaphor, fact check. That's true. That's true. That's why I say things like mashed potato brains and you know what? It really throws a curveball for the algorithm. So suddenly, like, you're talking about something in the mashed potato, and it's like, oh my god, like the cooking channel? What? See, this is ingenious. But the whole narrative was fabricated. So then Sussman can say, but there was a Russian-made cell phone that we were found, and it could have been one of Trump's, well, what does that have to do with Trump? Well, it's been concluded and confirmed, and it's been written in stone that Russia wanted Trump. Well, how do you know this? Well, because Russian intelligence officers were indicted. Based on what information? The government? Based on government information? No, based on Company One, which was paid by the Democratic Party. And also from a Senate panel confirmation. Well, what did they confirm? They confirmed an assessment. They confirmed an assessment, which is basically a confirmation. I will tell everyone on the planet, and LeBron James, one of the greats of all time, obviously. But I will tell everybody on the planet that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. Now, I will go a step further and say, for me, Kobe Bryant. I'll take Kobe Bryant over LeBron James. But there's not many people I would take over LeBron James. Obviously, I would take LeBron James over Larry Bird in a second. Or almost everyone else. But Michael Jordan, I would say, better than LeBron James. And I love Magic Johnson. But people who are younger than me will say LeBron James better than Michael Jordan. Okay, but see, again, I can't confirm my assessment. My evaluation or assessment is just that. And so that's exactly what Clapper and Brennan did. That was their opinion. It was their glorified opinion. And you didn't see any evidence. You just heard their assessment, and you see the word intelligence. But of course, when John Radcliffe was director of national intelligence, the media didn't listen to him because, of course, he was loyal to President Trump, or he agreed with President Trump. So they only agree with intelligence officials that agree with them. If it's an intelligence official that disagrees with them, they don't agree with them. So, Emily, hello. So, it's like, I can't say that, if I say that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I can't prove that. I can't prove that. Okay? Now, I can't prove that, just like the intelligence community couldn't prove that Russia wanted Trump. If anything, you can look. You have a human security risk, national security risk in Hunter Biden. Mashed potato brains Joe is completely compromised. The Clintons have been selling their souls to foreign interests forever. The foundation was pretty much, a conduit or a middleman. They didn't like Bill Clinton didn't say, "Oh, why don't you go ahead and put the money right in my pocket? A little bit, just put your whole, yeah, that's good. Oh, right down there, that's good." He didn't say that. So they said, "Oh, foundation." And he met with Vladimir Putin. So at his home, according to The Hill. So it's like Trump is the last person. Then they say, "Oh, well, Trump, the Steele dossier." I mean, they needed media. When BuzzFeed published the Steele dossier, that same BuzzFeed would never publish a dossier against Biden. There's no difference between the New York Times, the Washington Post, and BuzzFeed or Vanity Fair or the Los Angeles Times. There's no difference. And it's interesting because I don't see why people why it's very difficult for media or for a lot of people, even myself, to really come to terms with this. It's taken a long time for me to come to terms with this. Vanity Fair, Daily Beast, BuzzFeed, New Yorker, The Atlantic, New York Magazine, New York Times, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine. I mean, Mother Jones, The Nation, CNN, MSNBC, your favorite YouTube pundit with 1 million to 4 million subs that it basically regurgitates CNN and MSNBC stories. They're the same entity. You could mix and match. You could take a very famous YouTuber on the left or a liberal YouTuber with 1 million subs, and you could take that person and he could become, or she could become, a CNN producer, and take the CNN producer and have that producer run the YouTube channel for a while, or have both of them work for The Atlantic for a week, or have both an Atlantic journalist work for the Washington Post. It would be the same person. These are interchangeable parts. There's nobody different. Like, we don't have, it's basically state-run media aside from conservative media. It's basically state-run media. So we don't have state-run media, so the First Amendment, protects us from that. But we have all of media that aligns with the state all the time. And you will get lies by omission. And you'll get, like, an emphasis on truth or trust. And then you'll get this narcissistic viewpoint that, well, certain information is bad and you need to protect people from certain types of information. But see, you don't need to protect anyone from certain type of information. Want to know why? Because there are libel laws. There are laws against incitement. There are laws in the books already that protect people. So when you're saying that, Joe Rogan, when Neil Young says Joe Rogan harmed people, he cannot name one person. When James Clapper or Brennan or your favorite YouTube pundit says that Russia influenced 2016, they cannot name one person who was influenced by a Facebook ad. Furthermore, Senior Tulupin, hello. Furthermore, I was listening to a debate, and one of the people said, "Oh well, if someone told everyone to take a dump in a swimming pool, isn't that bad information?" You have to be a complete moron to listen to somebody and then take a dump in a swimming pool because they told you. You would have to be a complete and utter imbecile. So if somebody told me that, I wouldn't do it. But obviously, if somebody tells somebody on the left, they're maybe susceptible to that type of information. Like, the problem with the ideology of morally superior liberal Democrats or left-leaning ideologues is that they're so petrified, they're so frightened, they're so paranoid that somebody will listen to an opposing viewpoint and actually state, "Oh yeah, that's more logical than Biden or Democrats. I'm not going to vote Democrat now because or I'm not going to do this or that." Because either the risk-reward ratio or the cost-benefit analysis or risk-reward analysis or the evidence that I've seen doesn't back, a certain course of action or a certain narrative that's perpetuated by the left or Democrats or media. They're petrified. They're absolutely petrified. That's why they keep saying, "Oh, Trump incites and he provokes and he does this and that." People don't vote for Trump because of his personality. His personality is hilarious most of the time. Sometimes he pushes the envelope. Nobody votes for Trump because they say it's a cult of personality. Nobody votes for Trump because of his personality. Nobody votes for Trump because of his personality. One person votes for Trump because of his personality. And not one, most, or I should say a lot of people, a good percentage, don't vote for Trump because he's a Republican. Arbide, hello. They vote for Trump because they like his policies. That's why, Democrats are like, "You don't stand for anything." Well, actually, you don't stand for anything. Build Back Better. Go look at your favorite YouTube channels on the left. Go on the million sub to 3 million, 4 million sub. See how many segments they did on infrastructure. See how many segments they did on childcare and infrastructure. How about zero? Maybe 1%, less than 1% of all of their maybe less than 1% of all of their segments were on childcare and infrastructure. None of them were talking about Build Back Better policies that they love now. Also, the thing is, you have to understand, if you're a liberal Democrat, and I know these people, you'll lose your friends. They will disown you. Do you understand? They will disown you. And the people who disown you, it's in a way, it's sad, but it's good that you know who they are. So you don't have to waste, your energy or your time, because if you take friendships seriously, if you take relationships seriously, you don't want to waste time with people who could betray you. I mean, if you're going to watch CNN or MSNBC or believe that Trump worked with Russia or believe that he lies more than any other president, while all of media lied about him working with Russia, which never happened, which was completely an absurd narrative that came crashing down right before and after the Mueller probe. And they couldn't find anything, not only on Trump Russia, but on his tax returns. They couldn't find anything with Stormy. They couldn't find it. They can't find anything with January. They can't find anything at all. But it's actually a better, like, if you get these calls, whether people are drunk or text messages or whatever, I can't be your friend anymore. You like Trump. It's like, okay, so what? So does 73 million Americans. Politics doesn't define me. It doesn't define you. It shouldn't define anybody. Political allegiance. You shouldn't even have political allegiance. That's why I like to vote blue no matter who. The liberal Democrats, when it's a part of who you are, when being a liberal Democrat is the definition of who you are, if it gives you spiritual sustenance, if it makes you feel whole, if your political allegiance defines your morality, you're a fool. You're an absolute fool and an imbecile. And you are deliberately ignoring the corruption, which, by the way, is far more corrupt than the Republican Party, which was the epicenter of corruption 20 years ago. So, any political side that has Hollywood telling everyone about morality, or John Brennan and Comey, or social media algorithms that like silence only one side, any political side that wants to stifle free speech and pretend that consequences need to be leveled, while at the same time protecting their own political side from consequences, that political side is not on the right side of history. They're on the wrong side of history. There's never been a political faction that pushed to silence opposing viewpoints who's been right, who's been viewed as good or noble from a historical perspective. I mean, they had to fabricate, like, President Trump made it easy for them because he did push the envelope, but they had to fabricate a Trump. There were two Trumps. One was the actual president, who wasn't perfect, but you know what? He was pretty good as president. Great economy, great foreign policy. Was he perfect? No. But media was, obsessed with taking him down. Media is desperate to try and prop up Biden, and still his numbers are in the tank. Still his numbers are in the tank. I mean, and that's how bad Biden is. That's how bad mashed potato brains Biden is. That's how terrible the administration. And you know what's interesting too? Like, you just look, you can see, like, there's every single, like, the Ukraine, Russia. So Putin puts, 100 to 200,000 soldiers on the border. And all you hear is NATO's going to confront Putin. And they're sending soldiers, and Biden's sending 5,000 Americans, even though we have 70,000 permanently stationed American soldiers. And God bless the American soldiers and their families protecting us. But he's never been on the right side of history, ever, Biden. He voted alongside Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. He was part of an administration that, with a failed NATO intervention, destroyed Libya. He was implicated in Ukraine in 2014 also, or 2013. And you can look. He's never had a foreign policy success, ever. He's never had a foreign policy success ever. So, what does he do to try to make himself look good? To try to make himself look good, what he does is he says, well, they're going to invade any day now, any day now. Oh, you better believe. Intelligence shows, and it's like you're not doing anything special. We all can see that they have 100,000, 200,000 soldiers there. So you're not doing anything. You're not Nostradamus here. You're not Nostradamus. Now he's going to rent, or no, he's going to meet with Putin, and then if they don't invade, he can say, "Oh, well, I actually prevented the invasion," when that wasn't the case at all. He miscalculated everything. He miscalculated everything. So he miscalculated everything, and if Putin doesn't invade, it's because Russia found a way to negotiate, or I should say, Ukraine found a way to negotiate a deal. Because they don't this whole mess started because the West, NATO, Biden said, "Oh, you can join NATO," and they had no intention of joining NATO. Or I should say, they had no intention of allowing Ukraine to join NATO. That's the issue. They had no intention of allowing Ukraine to join NATO. And so, but they wanted to pretend that, oh, well, it's a sovereign country and it can join NATO, knowing very well if they were ever close, Russia would absolutely invade. So Biden and NATO put Ukraine into this situation. I Wonder 84, thank you so much for the kind words. And then we have, let's not even get into, let's look at the futures. Whatever, the Dow Jones futures are pretty much meaningless. So, because there's a possible meeting with Putin, so now the Dow's up 300 points after going down 2,000 points in the past month. But Nasdaq's up 126 points. But none of this means anything because it could go down another 600 points tomorrow or go up 200 or whatever. At the end of the day, the whole thing's going to tank. You don't have to be, the whole thing is going to collapse, people. Subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel, that'll be below. I'll be doing a lot more on the Stock Market Crash channel this week. And my Federalist article will have predicted everything. The whole thing's going to collapse, people. And I don't want it to, but because of Democratic policies, okay, because of policies that said, oh, yeah, we need to tank the economy and then obsess over what, Democrats and media will take any opportunity to politicize any tragedy because this way they can protect you, save you, help you. While at the same time, the road to where is paved with good intentions, so they'll actually ruin things even further. Jordan B. DJT and his VP, best good cop or bad cop hustle in the world ever. That is how it's done. No one messed with us or our allies. Yeah, that was a pretty good combo, I agree. Although I'm not really enamored with his VP, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that, Jordan B. I agree with you. And also the thing is, he didn't really care about. So Biden's advisors have to think about what NATO wants, and they have to think about what other countries want. So Trump didn't care. That's the good thing. Trump didn't care. Trump didn't care about what our allies wanted. He only focused on what was good for the country, and that's important. That's important. That's important. You know, Jordan B, thank you. Jordan B, thank you so much. And let's see, interest rates in March. That's gonna change. That's gonna change everything. Let's see, will it be 50 basis points? Probably not. Fed to raise 25 basis points. But see, the thing is, they raised 25 basis points, and that's not even going to be close to preventing inflation from continuing to skyrocket. And you're going to head into a recession, which I guess in a very weird way will take care of the inflation, or at least prevent it. Who knows? You see this year to date. So, I mean, what did I tell you? Starts off the year 36,799, and now it's at 34,000. And it'll eventually get to 33, and then 32, and then below 30 to 29. And I'm telling you, I've been saying since I wrote in the Federalist, the thing's going to tank. Foreign policy we saw with the Doha Agreement, Biden botched everything. Those 13 Americans should be alive today. 100 plus Afghans should be alive today. He utilized the T-ban as security around the only airport he left open. So he's a complete catastrophe. Nasdaq's been tanking, and then the stock market is like hilarious. Like, oh, mashed potato brains and Putin are gonna meet 300 points up. What on earth does that have to do with anything? Who cares? I mean, I don't want Ukraine invaded. That's for sure, and I would love to have a some kind of agreement to ensure that Ukraine doesn't join NATO, and this way they won't get invaded. Or there's no pretext for Russia to invade. I don't see what's wrong with that. You could say, well, they're a sovereign country. It's like, well, then why doesn't NATO simply accept them into the alliance? Oh, okay, corruption. Okay, so they weren't corrupt enough for Hunter not to get millions, but they're too corrupt to join NATO, although NATO will allow them to anytime they want. Let's see how stock market in India did. Okay, up a little bit. Down. Nikkei's down. Down even more than the Dow. Let's see. Wow, down. So this is a global downturn. You want to know why? Because very smart people said tank the economy. That's why. That's why. Very smart people said, prevent economic activity. And you know what? That's what happened. They prevented economic activity. And let's look at the NASDAQ here. Started off 15,830. Now it's 13,548. So, and so you see what's taking place. Um, you're not going to like. There's nothing bullish, or there's really no like optimism, or there's no silver lining to the economy. Like even GDP growth has been revised downward by the Atlanta Fed and by all these investment banks going forward. The first quarter GDP is a fraction of what it was. It's like according to the Atlanta Fed, it was 0.1%, then now it's 1.3%. But that's not, we were supposed to be 1.3% for the quarter. We're supposed to be well into our recovery, not well into our recovery. And so I don't think the market's open tomorrow, but like I just don't see. I mean, you look and let's see here. Elon Musk, he predicts recession. Let's see. Recession. Bank of America sees recession risk rising. The Fed is trying to tame inflation while avoiding a recession, which they can't do because they helped cause the inflation by pumping $10 trillion in monetary stimulus along with fiscal stimulus from Congress. They didn't. It was something like $4 trillion that they pumped in, or $5 trillion. The whole thing's going to come, unfortunately, crashing down. So I say, as I beg for super chat, and Janet, everyone here, thank you so much. Save your money every month. Save your money every month, and honestly, have some cash in case um, ATMs don't work. But save your money every month. Everything's going to come crashing down. Bitcoin is going to come crashing at 10,000. Dow will probably get to 20,000. The S&P, Jeremy Grantham says 2600. So, then you get people, oh, US stocks will rally. On what? Why? Why would stocks rally? For what? Because inflation's going to go through the roof? Because interest rates are going to rise? Is that why stocks will rally? The stock market enjoys rising interest rates? Is that it? How does any of that work? How does any of that work? Bank of America chief investment strategist sees recession. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. To my super chat, thank you. Thank you so very much, Janet, everybody here. Thank you to my super chat. Thank you, David, everyone here. JMK, hello. Eric, Luke, JG, everyone here. Thank you. I will see you all tomorrow, everyone. Have a wonderful President's Day. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. And I'll see you tomorrow for the live.